Ladies and gentlemen of the media, a very good morning to one and all, and a warm welcome to what promises to be a rather informative engagement. We are here to provide feedback on the major strategic developments at the Road Accident Fund. Now today is quite an important day, and not only for the claimants who are awaiting some funds from the Road Accident Fund, not just for the members of the legal profession who are waiting with bated breath to see any developments here at the Road Accident Fund, but for ordinary citizens like myself and yourself, South Africans who strive for the socio-economic well-being of this country. It is for that reason that we are here today. I will take you very quickly through the order of proceedings. This is for my colleagues in the media who need to know when to cut what at what time. We're going to begin with an official welcome from the board chairperson, who will then be followed by the Honourable Minister of Transport, Minister Balula, who will give us more detail as to why we are here and give us a statement to that regard. And then lastly, we'll get more granular details from Mr. Collins Lutswale, who will give us more information in terms of the last financial year and what they have achieved as a Road Accident Fund. You'll then be given an opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to pose your questions. So we do thank you so much for your time. We will not waste it. We will use it prudently to give you as much information as you require. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to welcome Ms. Thembi Msibi, the board chairperson of the Road Accident Fund, to give us our official welcome. A round of applause, please.
Thank you, Ayanda. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the media and everyone present. As Ayanda has indicated, my name is Thembi Msibi and I'm the chair of the board. On appointing us in December 2019, the Honourable Minister of Transport, Mr. Balula, outlined key priorities that the board and management should strive to achieve. These interventions that he outlined were basically in line with the priorities of the sixth administration in terms of what they wanted to see happening at the RAF, and also to ensure that the organization becomes sustainable. So today, as Ayanda has indicated, we're here to report on those priorities, and I think it is actually an opportune time, Minister, because it is 18 months since you appointed us, which is halfway through our term. I will just point to two of those priorities. One, it was reducing the administrative costs, and in particular the legal costs. As you would be aware by now, at that point in time, the budget of the Road Accident Fund, which we received through the fuel levy, was 43 billion. And out of that budget, 17 billion went to administrative costs. And of that 17 billion, 10 billion was spent on legal costs, which relates to 25% of that total budget. So Minister, you'd be glad to hear that as of today, in terms of that 10 billion, we have saved 4 billion from those legal costs, which we can then pay over to the claimants of the Road Accident Fund. The other priority was to deal with the liability, which at that point was already over 200 billion. And it was climbing each and every year. The CEO will give us all the details in terms of how we've reduced that liability, and at present it is around 28 billion. So those are the kind of results, Minister, that we are here to give to yourself. And the board has been very pleased with the work of management in total, even though we don't have the full executive team, but we have seen major results from the team that we have. With those few words, I will hand over to the Minister to then take us through the priorities and even in terms of the deliverables that we have achieved thus far. Thank you very much.
drop the mics a little bit? I think they're obscuring the vision of the camera.
No, I'm talking.
Yeah, you can just put them down.
Thank you very much, Ayanda, Program Director, our spokesperson, the Director General of the Department of Transport, Mr. Alec Moheni, the Chairperson of the Board, Mr. Misivi, the CEO of Road Accident Fund, Mr. Colin Lizuano, and the Deputy Minister will join us anytime as we move on. It is 1 year, 6 months since we appointed the board, and it's almost 2 years since we've been appointed by President Ramaphosa in the position of transport in this country. Today we are here to report to many of you about the developments at Road Accident Fund. And to that extent, will be able, me and my team and the board, together with the management at Road Accident Fund, to take questions. The journey and the road ahead is still long, but we're inspired by the developments of leadership that is mobile and which is quite encouraging. I'm quite delighted as the Minister of Transport and my deputy to stand before you here today to report developments at the Road Accident Fund. As most of our people and even in our department and the ministry, we've been inundated by a lot of developments, particularly after the pandemic. And I wish to report that we've been hard at work, like we are in most of our entities, turning them around. We're at PRASA reporting about vandalism. Today we're at RAF, tomorrow we'll be talking about aviation, we'll be talking about maritime, and the impact we've got to make in terms of promoting, among others, as the backbone of the economy of the country, growth and employment, amidst the development of massive loss of jobs in our economy. I'm quite delighted today to stand here with a very active board, professional board, led by Ms. Misivi. We're only affected in the board by the departure of Mrs. Rabaji, who's now the head of the forfeiture unit. We appointed here. She also did a splendid job. She contributed to this development. And then the board also appointed Mr. Msivi. As you know, that RAF over the years was a homeless ground where everybody did as they wish. And there was no board, there was a board, there was a board, it was not clear. And then we had to appoint our own. We brought our own superstar from the Department of Transport. You know Mr. Colin Lizuano for many other things that people blame him for. But the one thing you can't take away from him is hard work, vision, and dedication. He has been at the center of this work with the board and with the support of the board, and the board giving him 100% support, and us outlining the compact agreement in terms of the board that has worked wonders. From a shareholder perspective, we have sent the Director General to serve in the board to represent the shareholders' interest, because RAF is one of our priorities. Its liability, if not properly managed, it will actually cause something, you know, it will make e-tolls look like a picnic. So we're dealing with a whole lot of things in this country. Fixing is our motto, is our tagline, and it's not easy. Neither are we going to claim easy victories today, but taking you through the journey of the work that we have actually undertaken. And thank you to the media for taking keen interest all the time when we ask you to come and we report. You give us your time, and you also give us hard time most of the time about questions you ask to Ayanda and our team about the work that we're doing. So today we are happy to give you an update on this work. We have reported to Cabinet. We'll go back to Cabinet again on these developments. I've had an opportunity to share part of this work with the President last night to give him an update as well briefly as to the developments we're registering in terms of work in progress about the RAF, because it's not only been a cause for concern. RAF has been top on the agenda of Cabinet, has also been on top of the agenda of the legislature in the form of the National Parliament. In terms of the RAF's bill, we're going up and down in Parliament. We hope to go back and finalize the job of the RAF's bill in Parliament through our legislatures in Parliament. We also report to the Portfolio Committee, and these developments will also be interrogated by the Portfolio Committee led by Mr. Msebenzi Zwane and all the MPs there. We will be happy to report on all these developments we are undertaking in relation to RAF. When we came to office, we had to grapple with the challenge of the Road Accident Fund, which was struggling to meet its constitutional obligations due to a variety of reasons. In line with the Kauleza ethos of the sixth administration, we immediately got down to work to stabilize the entity and tackle the intractable challenges, and part of which I've spoken about in terms of appointing a board with people with skills aligned to RAF. We've got actuaries, we've got people, doctors, we've got lawyers. We don't have a board of lawyers only, because lawyers are our biggest headache when it comes to RAF. So the chair is the lawyer, not that in bad spirit, but so the previous board, we saw that it was only aligned with lawyers and so on. So we were litigation prone in terms of RAF. We appointed the current board under the able leadership of Advocate Omar Astaba, later succeeded by Ms. Tembeli Temsibi, Watinta Mafazi, Watinti Mbogoto, Zagu finish and plan, and gave them the mandate to turn around the fund and address the underlying challenges. This was followed by the appointment of the CEO, Mr. Collins Litswaro, who is responsible for implementing the new operating model approved by the board. We have previously reported that the RAF has operated on a financially unsustainable model for a number of decades. In recent years, the long-term liabilities of the fund have become the government's largest contingent and liability. The fund has also experienced liquidity challenges as claims against the fund had outpaced the growth in the RAF level. The RAF has been reporting annual deficits since 1981. Some of you were not born then. The same year, the fund was declared technically insolvent. At the time, the fund operated under the Compulsory Motor Vehicle Insurance Act of 1972 and had just been a subject of the following three commissions of inquiry: the Corda Commission of Inquiry in 1954, the Duplessis Commission of Inquiry in 1962, and the Vessels Commission of Inquiry in 1976, respectively. So in the democratic dispensation, we are not the first to deal with challenges of road accident fund, or what you may call third party by then. So there's been successive commissions, even under apartheid, that dealt with the road accident fund. When the Road Accident Fund Act of 1996 came into effect on the 9 May 1997, the annual deficit had grown to 886 million. This was followed by a further 5 more commissions of inquiry. That is now in the new dispensation. Notwithstanding all these commissions and legislative challenges, in 2005, a decade later, the annual deficit had risen to 1.2 billion. This astronomical increase in the annual deficit continued until the historic 3.2 billion surplus reported for the period ended on 31st March 2001. Our determination and hard work to turn the situation around has paid off. These are unprecedented achievements which will undoubtedly turn the tide in the manner in which the RAF delivers on its mandate. The RAF collects 43 billion a year through the fuel levy. Only 26 billion or 60% of this annual revenue is spent on the annual compensation of claimants. 17 billion rand or 40% a year is spent on administrative costs. Of this, 10.6 billion is spent on legal costs. 10.6 billion is spent on legal costs. More than 2 billion is spent on medical costs, less than what it is intended. It goes to the pockets of legal minds, less than what it is intended to spend on people who get into accidents on the road. And this is what we're explaining. The RAF has over the years accumulated deficits as there are more claims from road accidents. This situation is further exacerbated by a number of fraudulent claims the RAF has to contend with. The model that the RAF operated on was centered on litigation, with 99% of the claims settled just before trial. The legal costs had been growing exponentially over the years, from 800 million in 2008 to 10.6 billion in 2019. The board and management wasted no time in tackling the mandate to turn around this situation. What was also a priority is the actual liability of 322 billion that the new team was asked to investigate and reduce. With this being the contingent liability of the state, it made the RAF the biggest liability after ESCOM. You understand? After ESCOM, the biggest liability. We are pleased to announce progress in the following areas. We have achieved a significant reduction in administrative costs of more than 7 billion rand in the 2020-2021 financial year. The RAF has for the first time in many years posted a surplus of 3.2 billion. This is a dramatic shift from a 5.2 billion deficit on the previous year. The CEO will speak in more detail in Ayanda's language, granular. So investment income has increased by 152% year on year, from 62 million rand to 157 million. Finance costs have decreased by 62% year on year, from 263 million to 900 million. Rates of execution have reduced by more than 50% through a legal strategy and stratification of the debt book. The short-term liability has reduced by 2.2 billion, from 17 billion to 14.8 billion. Current assets have increased, including cash position, by more than 4 billion rand. More importantly, the RAF has adopted a more appropriate accounting treatment for social benefits in line with its mandate than the insurance contracts previously employed. This has resulted in the massive decrease of the RAF reported liability by 305 billion rand, bringing the RAF liability to 28 billion rand and the net liability position of 13.5 billion rand. This accounting treatment has been independently reviewed by PwC and its accounting experts. Pursuant to the implementation of 2020-2021 annual performance plan, the unaudited financial statements approved by the board for the period ending 31 March 2021 show encouraging signs of the efficacy of the new operating model. Although a combination of factors led to the surplus, it is clear that the 62% decrease in the finance or administrative costs from 219 million in 2020 to 90 million in 2021 was a significant contributing factor. This is testament to the RAF 2020-2025 strategic plan, which prioritizes reducing administrative costs. What makes the achievement of this surplus even more remarkable is that it was achieved notwithstanding the devastating impact of COVID-19 on revenue. Although the fund recovered well from the hard lockdown revenue dip, the annual revenue income of 42 billion rand was still lower than the 2019 level of 43 billion rand. Following an investigation into the claims liability, which at the reporting period ended on 31st March 2020 was 330 billion rand, the RAF came to the conclusion that applying IFRS for insurance contracts as standards to the social benefit activities is not resulting in reliable and relevant information. As evidenced by the excellent financial results, there has also been very good progress registered in the implementation of the RAF strategic plan and the priorities we agreed to with the board in the shareholder compact. In this regard, preliminary unaudited results show an overall performance of 77.8%. This is despite the challenges brought about by COVID-19 and the protracted legal challenge against this new strategic plan. These developments demonstrate that we have turned the corner in addressing the RAF intractable challenges. We are on the right path, and we will continue to work towards a sustainable and equitable road accident benefit scheme. Thank you very much, Ayan.
Well, thank you very much to the Honourable Minister of Transport, Minister Gideon Balula. I think it's fair to say that we can't beat about the bush. We know full well that the Road Accident Fund is not quite where it should be just yet, but I think we can say with great confidence and beyond a shadow of doubt that we are headed in the right direction and there is a positive trajectory that awaits us. And it reminds me of a question, hey, how does one climb a high mountain? Well, the answer is simple, it's one step at a time. So to bring us up to speed now with those steps that we're taking as the Department of Transport and in particular the Road Accident Fund, please allow me to call upon Mr. Collins Lutswalo, the CEO of RAF, and he's going to tell us about those building blocks that are heading in the right direction.
Thanks very much, Ayanda. Thanks, Minister. Thanks to the chairperson of the board, DG. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence today. There is a lot of things we can say about how the Road Accident Fund has gone. I think one step at a time. We do not report at any point that we have reached where we want to go. It's 1 out of 5 years, so it's the first step in the progressive steps that we've taken. The journey to transform the Resilient Fund has just begun. In our view, we're on the right trajectory and we're gaining traction in most areas. Of course, challenges still remain in the areas of change and embedding the new I-care values of RAF, which is integrity, compassion, accountability, respect, and excellence. And we seek to bed this down. We still have got some way to go in battle against corruption and fraud. But I must emphasize that our focus really has been on ensuring that we make RAF into a sustainable entity. And in this regard, Minister raises the issue around accounting policy, which is, by the way, the main issues that we want to focus on is the 3.2 billion surplus that we would say you might have not paid before. If you look at our numbers, it will tell you that the claims that we paid remained relatively constant, whereas there is a reduction in administrative costs. So these administrative costs in the main, we have built them around legal costs of about 4 billion, if you look at what we have there. And then you see that when you look at the medical costs, we've been paying 5 times what medical claims are paid. And we have brought in a new way of dealing with these medical costs. So we are bringing RAF back into the market by lowering those medical costs. We have just released for comments our RAF medical tariffs that we have. But the biggest contributor as well has been our new model that we work with together with the Department of Justice in bringing legal costs down. We had decided to not proceed with our legal panel, which cost us about 3.6 billion a year. And our model is now working towards making sure that we are more talking to administrative efficiency. So we're no longer looking at issues around litigation. So our focus has been bringing the claim within 120 days. We must be able to resolve that claim, which is 4 months. Currently, RAF runs at 1,475 days, which is 5 years. Now you can imagine if this was a little girl whose father has passed as a consequence of a road accident and needed assistance from RAF, it then takes us 5 years to be able to conclude. So what would be happening to this little child who has lost the breadwinner? It will be a disaster. But of course, Minister, we must add that when we are busy with this work of turning around the RAF, there's a lot of industries that have been built around the inefficiencies of RAF. People talk about lawyers and they say the lawyers are the main problem, but we have seen that even in the medical fraternity, we have been charged 5 times. Actually, charge us 10,000 for calculation when everywhere else they charge about 2,000 for calculation. So you can see a lot of this. I mean, even hospitals have made the habit. I'm sure, Minister, wherever you are getting a lot of complaints about RAF and the fact that RAF is now asking a lot of questions before. And of course, people will always complain about it. But that's part of our work. That's part of our partner, right? And this we are going to do, Minister, in a lot of ways. I mean, people would know that as part of what we are doing, we are seeking to change this. And of course, in the process, Minister, it has not been an easy journey for us. We have finalized the macro structure with the board that is signed. So we have got a macro structure where our executives have finalized the signing of the board. We'll be filling those positions because we have got a lot of vacancies in that. We need to also change with the way we do business. So we have got what we call the RAF model. We are this week, Minister, releasing our RAF 1 form, which is a form that is going to include what we call minimum information requirements that we've been fighting with the lawyers on. Simply put, Minister, when we looked at the backlog and trying to to resolve the backlog of RAF. We found out that 80% of all the claims that we wanted to deal with the backlog did not have all the information for us to be able to assess and finalize those claims. So we received an accident, a form, Minister, which is called RAF1, with a medical report, but they don't attach the accident report. So we don't know whether this person fell from a tree, fell from a house, or whether this person actually was involved in the car accident. So there's no nexus in terms of what they give us. And when we say to them, give it to us, they are busy taking us to court, so it's something that we are focusing on. And this is the battle that we are going to take. So we are also going to be reviewing all the other forms. So this week we will be gazetting the new RAF1 form that will include all those minimum requirements. And of course, we'll come and gazette all the other RAF2, RAF3, and RAF4, which is the one for major injuries that we see. But Minister, South Africans must also help us, because what happens is that most of them are not complying with Section 22 of the RAF Act that says within 14 days of being involved in an accident, as an insured driver or owner of that vehicle, where someone has been injured or killed, you must report that to the road accident fund on a RAF form. That has not been done for over the years, and it's something that we are going to be quite active in ensuring that people do, because that's the only way in which you can link people that are injured to the insured driver and be able to execute this thing in under 20 days. Further, we'll be reviewing all the regulations that the Minister issued in terms of Section 26, because we believe very strongly that there is a need to change that if we are to change and bring in the efficiencies. And we are also going to be releasing our channeling strategy, which seeks to see that we have the efficient provisions of services. Earlier on, because of the litigation as a center of what we used to do, much more of our offices were regionally based, and these regions were based on where the high courts were. So you would see that there would be two in Gauteng called Main Lane and Johannesburg, simply because there was the North Gauteng High Court and there was also the South Gauteng High Court. And you would see that the way RAF is positioned in terms of the regions is positioned that way. It makes no sense, but also even the courts have changed, because you have got the Limpopo High Court, you have got the Mpumalanga High Court, and all the other divisions. But that's not our focus. Our focus is to make sure that you, within at least 200 kilometers, are able to get a fully functional attack. So we are going to be provincially based and focused as we are doing that, and we will have some satellite branches elsewhere to try and minimize the time and be able to have our people being able to do things. One of the most important things is to make sure that Minister is very easy to claim for us. You know what you need. Once you have given it to us, we are also able to assist you quite quickly. And of course, that also gives us a back with the lawyers. But we, as well as government, have got ourselves into that space in terms of Section 19. Section 19 says you can do it if someone is going to represent you, that person must be. The question is, why not the doctor? Because the doctor knows how you're injured. So some of the things that we are going to be assisting in coming with those recommendations to the Minister about the changes that we want to see. So we moved, Minister, to say we are quite excited about the 3.2 billion surplus that we have discharged for the first time. But we must not fool ourselves about whether the RAF financial position is where we want it to be. It's getting better with time, and we have been helped, Minister, by also the 45A application that we made, where the court granted us the right for reprieve because of the issue around our liquidity. So we have gone, we've ratified our liability, Minister, and we have also picked up a big bet with the lawyers, in a sense that when we said to them that they had what we call risk allocation, most big law firms that we think do other things, actually 80% of their work is RAF. So we realized that when we stopped the thing called fixed allocation, some of these lawyers, Minister, used to get 100 million a month from road accident fund. And what we found was that some of them would have a debt of that has aged about 60 days, where as the small law firms would probably pay 100, 1,000 days or 2,000 days. We have changed that. We said let the settlement date be the date on which we pay 180 days for everyone. So that whoever a little law firm at the corner also has got the opportunity like the big law firms. We had to do that. But part of it, Minister, was that we also had periods of execution that were unfair. People jumping in the queue, but also most of those ones that were jumping in the queue were coming from big law firms. That's we had to do. So we have dealt with that as part of it, what we need to do going forward. One of the most important parts, Minister, is the issue around foodless and waste expenditure. We have reduced that from about 15 million a year to about 1.2 million. So we are working towards those. Those are some of the deliverables that we think have been done. So as we move forward and we look at this, you see that our assets have grown quite substantially. Our cash and cash equivalents have increased from 1.3 billion to about 4.6 billion in that year, which is a massive increase if you look at it. And we must deal with the issues around the claims liability, because RAF is not an insurance, and treating it like an insurance is just being unfair to the road accident fund. We keep on being compared to other entities when their liability is actually a liability. So what we did, Minister, is that when you asked us to investigate, we went and investigated this liability, found out that the way we've been accounting for the liabilities in terms of what is called IFRS 4. IFRS 4 is accounting for insurance contracts. RAF does not have any insurance contract. So when there was an absence of IPSA standards in this regard, what we then did is that we went and looked, and in January last year there was a standard that was released, IPSA 42, that was for social benefits. And we found it relevant, and we thought it fairly represents the statements of RAF. We went to talk with the Accounting Standards Board and we started that whole process. It has culminated in us reporting fairly and reducing the RAF liability by 305 billion. That will also help, Minister, because the Minister of Finance will have a reduction in terms of RAF in the books of the state, and I think that's the best representation that we have. So we did that, but as part of, so that people don't say, Minister, they put the books, we went and asked for an opinion from one of the big accounting firms who also had a specialist globally in Belgium that helped us to look at this thing, because they have been dealing with this issue about social benefits, and that IPSA 42 is a relevant standard. So we asked simple questions, Minister, is it permissible for us to change the accounting policy? It came to the affirmative. Will the change in accounting policy result in financial statements that comply with RAF as a reporting framework? It came with in the affirmative. Establishment of the RAF claims fall within the scope of IPSA 42. It came to the affirmative. And does the new accounting policy meet the requirement of IPSA 42? It also came to the affirmative. That the change in accounting policy result in a fair presentation and more relevant, reliable, and complete information. This is why it's important for the readers of the financial statement. And that also came in the affirmative. So we are quite happy that we have done all the work that we needed to do in this regard, Minister. We are quite comfortable that we are doing this work. So what next? What are the challenges that we are facing as RAF? Minister, the reality is that in South Africa, the briefing patterns of lawyers is still a challenge. The legal fraternity and black individuals that operate in there have been given more of the work from RAF, and they have developed their business model around the road accident, but simply because the briefing patterns elsewhere have been skewed. We need to deal with that as we move forward, and we have encouraged discussions in that regard, and I think it's very, very important. The actuaries themselves and everybody else that is being displaced by what we call the RAF movement. Because simply put, there is no way in a system where you get a fund that pays 40% administrative cost. It must be around 7.5 to 10%. To make sense, so that much more of the money must go to the community, and that's what we are focused on. And I think, Minister, it's important that we look at those matters as we move forward. But one of the most important parts is the amendments that we need in the RAF Act to just make the system sustainable as RAPS is still coming into the space. RAPS in its current, in its new form that we are going to deal with that deals with the issues around sustainability going forward. The part where it's going to be much more easier for the claimant to be able to claim without the trail going to someone who's going to take 25%. So that is very, very important for us to be able to do. So it's important that as we move forward, we understand where we are. But Minister, we are not going to achieve this without your support.